Donna visiting with
Donna?
us
Hi,
today.
Donna.
Oh, hello.
All sorts of magical fun.
Hello.
Beena was sharing her pictures with us, and we get to see Beena, and everything is magical. Even though Beena's still a bit shy, but all right, it's all good. It's all good, Beena. All
Yeah.
good, all good. Very fabulous, very fabulous. Fantastic, fantastic. Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. Ah, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Very cool. How are you, Joe? Oh, say again, Beena. What did you want to say? Sorry.
I was just saying that Happy New Year, Joe, and welcome back. And I was very keen for you to join us again. And then I have to go for Frocker's session, and I'll be
Ah,
finished because
okay.
Erica, just
Uh,
have a look. This is what I'm doing.
Go back a bit. Go back a bit, Beena. Go back. Go back a bit. More back. More back. More back. And up. Go up.
Okay.
Up. There you go.
I've been
Beena's doing a whole drawing of the year. So each circle is a month.
Who is
So
that?
she's at June. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I'm doing.
That
Whole
is
big project.
Okay. So it's a big project, and it's still 6 months left. I'll be here as soon as Frocker's session done.
After 6 months, you'll be here.
No,
what it sounded like.
okay.
All right.
So
See
bye
you
for now.
later, Beena. See you later.
Bye.
Bye bye. Well, we lose one and we gain another one, so it's all good. You're gonna hang out with us a bit, Donna.
I have to go soon too, but for a little bit.
Okay. We've been talking about transition, the philosophy of transition.
Right.
And just as it applies not only to death, but to jobs, to relationships, to old habits, to old mindsets, uh, to old ways of being, emotional states, anything. And this philosophy of transition, which is to do things smoothly, without friction, without stress, to move from one to another as a positive change rather than as a disruptive, negative, bothersome change.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a really, really, really big deal. Yeah. So, just Donna was saying death has been very in the forefront lately. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Sorry.
don't know. Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. No problem. No problem. Yeah. How about for you guys? Any particular connectivities to death?
Just
Connectivity.
in the current moment or in general or
Just in general, in the last while or so, just seems to have come up, like Donna was saying, and like for Beena too, with her auntie dying like that, so suddenly. It was kind of a big deal, the suddenness of it. So, yeah, just come up in peculiar ways. So, I
right.
don't know. Is it for you guys?
No, we haven't had anyone.
Uh,
Um,
I feel like death for me is always I mean it's not so morbid, but I mean it seems like death is a topic that for whatever reason comes up with me a lot. Or not.
that's what Beena was saying. It is a topic that's come up. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I talk about it a lot or whatever, but it just that concept seems to sort of follow me around. It seems
Yeah.
it's been interesting that's been a major focus of a lot of the heard. I don't know. It's weird. I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah, I think death is something that I struggled with a lot as a kid. I mean, one of the things Kathy and I talked about was how when I was young, I used to dream about people trying to kill me all the time, like all the time.
Wow.
And she was like, that's kind of unusual. And then we talked about the fear of dying in childbirth and all that. And I don't know, it seems like for me, I think when I was younger, it was a really big deal. As I've gotten older, it's become more, I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. It's not like I think about death all the time or that I'm obsessed with that, but I think I don't know. It just comes up a lot for me somehow. And I think it's been interesting. The further I go along, the more I become I don't know, sort of maybe more comfortable with the comfort of death, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This whole transition philosophy. It's not to be dealing with the thing when you're dealing with it, whether it be a relationship, a job, or a person who is now a transition, but to do it before those eventualities occur, so
Right.
that you're prepared for it. So, Donna, in terms of the alternative perspectives on death, particularly, um, uh, I'm keen to hear from you what we were talking about, to share it back and give a recap of it, to share with Erica and Joe what we were talking about in terms of shifting a real profound deep shift on death itself, to look at it from completely different angles and why. Donna, you feel
To
like doing
put
that?
it, yeah, to put
Let's
it
go
in
for it.
context, I work in a field where I'm working with elderly. I work with an elder law attorney. And so I was sharing with Sil of late, there's been many, many deaths of our clients, an inordinate amount, and some of it is COVID related, some is not. And the other day I received a phone call from a gentleman that I don't recall meeting. It's one of our clients, a newer client. And it was before office hours. I get in at 6 and everybody else gets in at 8:30. And for whatever reason, he called early, so I answered. And he just immediately started sharing what people would perceive as very personal information, his experience. His brother had just passed several hours ago. He was trying to process how he felt about that. His brother had dementia, but didn't have physical signs of any illness or anything. And he was sharing that he went up and he's been caring for his brother for the last 6 months or so, where the dementia's made a turn and he's needed somebody to be around. So he went up and he brought him his dinner and he was eating in bed and everything was normal. And he's going into great detail and sharing this whole story with me on how the food that he made his brother and what show was on the TV his brother was watching. It was Andy Griffith, and just sharing a lot of details. And so he was processing out loud basically. And I just let him talk. And he was saying how he just didn't understand why his brother died. It was a shock. It was sudden. There was no reason. And well, of course, we all know that he doesn't know necessarily what was internally going on inside his brother. He was just seeing the physical dementia and things. So with that being said, I just listened basically. And he wanted to talk to Rick about the next steps in the process, which always fascinates me, that we get a lot of clients that when they have their parents or whatever die, one of the first things they do is call the attorney, which I just find that fascinating in and of itself. So when I was talking through this with Sil, I have experienced a lot of conversations. A lot of our clients have died. A lot of conversations about death. I'm involved with people who help with the transition of physical death. And just through the word, if I just looked at the word death, there's so many ways that word applies. Like Sil was saying, a death of a relationship, a death of a job, a death of a person, a death of old beliefs, a death of limiting beliefs. I mean, you can apply death to so many things. So recently, I have felt a appropriateness to taking the concept of death itself in its traditional form, and what if we flipped it upside down, and rather than it being a sorrowful situation or a sad situation, we celebrate and we see it as a rebirth something that is new and something that is beautiful and something that is opening up doors of possibilities. So part of what I was sharing with Sil is in my environment, I work for a gentleman who has very strong religious beliefs. And so when I hear these conversations that he has with our clients, many times it's, you know, the person will share, my mom just died last night. And the response is 9 times out of 10, I'm really sorry for your loss. Oh, you must be so sad. And I sit in my office and I hear that, and I have a strong desire to like, what if we just change that conversation? What if we, you know, had the ability to start having conversations that said, that's a beautiful transition. And how are you going to celebrate your mom's life? And what are you going to be doing at this point? And how can we help you celebrate and get things in place rather than how can we commiserate together and put together documents that are sad and sorrow. So those are the types of physical experiences that I'm kind of at the moment experiencing, and then just not stopping there, but taking those and extrapolating what I need to from them to bring them inside so that for me, I can figure out how I, just as an individual person in that working environment, can start being more authentic in the way I feel about death and how I feel about transition and an appropriate way to do that. And what are some things to consider in kind of offering that as a shift in perspective and applying my truths in my world. So that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot that we can do differently, in other words. Doesn't have to be the same old, same old. And just the concept of death, to switch it to say, okay, let's use a different term instead, transition. Death implies loss, cessation, ending. But transition, things are changing. They're part of a cycle. There's movement. You're moving from one positive to another, not from positive to nothing or positive to negative. So when we just shift the deep underlying conception, everything changes. For instance, somebody, okay, you know, you've died. Oh, well done. You've joined the grand cycle. You know, this is it. Everything that caused us to live at some point was alive, right? It's part of the cycle. So we are, if you're going to honor life and honor nature, well, now you join that grand cycle. This is fantastic. It's your way of honoring all of the life that has kept you alive, you know, in any way, shape, or form. All life keeps us alive. We can't live without, you know, some other life at our service. Yeah. It's a really magical way of thinking of it. And just on death specifically, I was saying just a few alternative philosophies to shift ourselves to say, well, what if death was an objective rather than something that we have to defeat, something to work toward, so that you have to have the appropriate awareness in order to die appropriately. In other words, in order to transition. So let's just, for argument's sake, say when we transition, we become energy, which everything is energy. We know that, okay, spirit form, however you want to say it. In that energy reality, one would imagine, or at least we could assume, that things are going to be fluid. There's a kind of a fluid reality. So your emotional state, your attitudes, your moods, your mindset, your beliefs, those are what are now going to have a much greater impact on your reality than they would in a physical reality. Therefore, the challenge for us is to develop our awareness to this point of flexibility and fluidity, so that when we do get to that fluid reality of the spirit life, of the energy life, that we don't end up creating a negative reality because of fears and doubts and resentments and all the nonsense that we hold on to. But we have that ability to be fluid in our awareness. And the big obstacle to this is the concept of death itself. So death presents us a challenge that necessitates a fluidity to open up to the idea that it may be other than what we've been taught to do. That already is a major hurdle. Just something saying to say, hey, your ability to overcome a deep, deep conditioning, that conditioning that you were talking about too, or this legacy that we get from our DNA that we inherit, if we can overcome those through sensibility, through sobriety, through real major powerful awareness, this is an unbelievably fantastic accomplishment. So it's like death is the ultimate challenge and test that tests our ability to truly be aware, to truly be sensible, to truly apply a sobriety to the fullest, to truly demonstrate our sobriety.
Right.
So to me, it's like, death is a magical gift. It's not a negative,
Right.
especially when you see it as a transition.
Right.
Okay, let's just go one little step further and say, all right, let's assume death is a cessation and there's no more. I still get the benefits of this philosophy, this philosophy of developing my awareness in the life here and now. I still get the benefits of extra awareness, perspective shifting, not being a slave to emotion, not being a slave to conditioning. I still get it now because, like I was saying to Donna, I want my emotions to be in the service of me, not me be in the service of my emotions.
Right.
Right? I want to feel them and have them, but I don't want them to come at me and I feel them regardless. Because even if it might be joy or rapture, let's assume I go into rapture or bliss at an inopportune moment, that could kill me. Right? I get run over by the bus. Okay, I'm very happy being run over by the bus, but I'm still run over by the bus, or
Right.
crippled or whatever. So if our emotions are in charge of us, even if they're positive, it's dangerous, and it can be detrimental. And of course, it's about appropriateness and inappropriateness. But if we're the ones in charge, that's it. Yeah, that's the key. We want to be in charge of our emotions. And for that, we need the awareness. What are you chuckling at, Erika? Tell me.
Jo- Joe was keeping his fingers busy by like twirling a Sharpie in his hand over here.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Finger twirling. Brilliant.
You listen to both things.
Oh, I got you. I got you. Yeah, my fingers need to be busy all the time as well. I play imaginary instruments with my fingers all day long. So.
I could see this thing and I could hear.
It's all good. It's all good. So the key is, Joe, is you got to twirl it behind your back. It's not the twirling that's the issue. It's seeing the twirling that's the problem. But again, look at just something like this. The more we develop our awareness, we develop abilities to deal with things like these. And so we are not the slave of beliefs, ideas, conditioned habits. So it's freedom. It's about freedom, the freedom of our awareness. But, specifically using death as this ultimate, because it is, there's not much that's more potent as a conditioned belief than death, or particularly fear of death. And we can shift away from that. It's not a hard and fast. We don't have to be locked into it. It's very exciting, very exciting. But I was saying, I've done a lot of grief counseling with people, and it's really, I don't like to call it grief counseling, but that's the field. But it's sharing this transition philosophy. But I feel it needs to be done before the time, not afterwards.
Right.
So, like in Donna's case, when those clients move to the freedom of being residents, rather than, Donna was saying she don't want to call it a hospice or whatever, but when they move from the, or when they retire, for instance, that's when you want to have this counseling for both the elderly people and their family. They all need it ahead of time so that everyone's prepared. I actually feel this is really something for teenagers. Really understand this, because that's when most teenagers I know at some point get somewhat obsessed with death, and they have it, they think about it, they stress about it, they pass. Okay, 10 to 1, they kind of sublimate it and they just move on and they stop thinking about it because they can't deal with it, or they don't want to deal with it. They just kind of shove it aside, and then it just comes back to bite them later. But that's the time where, if you share all of these perspectives, you say, oh, there's another way to think about it. Most of the teenagers end up getting stressed and bugged out about death because they have no replacements for this. Death is horrible, death is a calamity, death is the end. They have no replacements. This transition philosophy is a profound replacement for it. And it makes all the difference when we have that replacement, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's true or not, it's irrelevant. It's about this underlying strategy of it, like we were talking about yesterday, about the magic of woman and strategy. It's just a powerful thing when we have a strategy that comes at things more gently. Not everything is this battle, because that's what we've been conditioned to fight death, and it's a battle. And nah, doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. Other ways of dealing with things. Yeah.
One of the big things for me this year was I don't remember what led to this or what we had been talking about, but I remember thinking about death and sort of trying to make sense of death. How and why does death make sense? Why does it make sense that we have this experience? If it's true that death isn't an end, then why do we experience it as one? Why is that valuable? Why would that make sense for us to have a particular experience with it? And that was such a big thing for me, of sense of that for myself, and that kind of seeing death as the illusion. It's a necessary, it's a necessary illusion of an ending.
Yes, very necessary.
Motivates
Yes.
us to understand, to think about the consequences of our choices. It motivates us to act, to grow.
Yes. Yes.
Because there's an end point. There's there's an illusion of an ending. There's this,
Right.
okay, this is sort of the ultimate motivator when it comes to choice, and it makes sense that we
Yes.
illusion of an ending, because if we didn't,
Right.
would we have the same motivation to learn about choice, or to think about the consequences of choices? If we thought what doesn't really matter, what
Exactly.
the scenario for a choice would be ending in death, and I don't have to worry about that because there is no ending. If we experience that, would we ever really understand the consequences of choice, or come to understand choice appropriately? So that was such a huge thing.
And responsibility. Right.
That was such a huge thing for me, of seeing how this illusion of an ending makes sense, and that if that's not really what happens, why is it that we think that it does, or that we experience? Why do we experience? If God is good and only wants what's best for us, and all of this, then why do we experience death, this horrible, sad, awful ending?
Right.
It makes sense why, because that's one of the, for me, that sort of became
Exactly.
one of the most important parts of our experience,
Right.
this life in this body.
Right.
Is going through this
Right.
finite time. If it was forever,
Yes.
then we wouldn't learn what we need to learn here. So it's absolutely necessary.
Exactly.
To make sense. And that was such a huge thing of, like, I could make sense of death. I can understand how death makes sense, and surely I can
Exactly.
do everything else.
Exactly. To me, if you believe in God, you have to see death as a good thing.
Right.
Otherwise, you don't have enough belief. I'm sorry. Your belief is flawed. So if you believe in God, you have to see death as a good thing. And this is a magical thing. When you flip it around and say, oh, well, it has to be good. Well, how exactly is it good? All right, let's take the concept of heaven, or this fluid reality concept, right? And now we say, let's say we are the entities in fluid reality. And fluid reality, it's kind of like, a perfect internet, but a perfect internet where there's free sharing. It requires ethics and sensibility of all involved, right? So there's a membership, you could say. If I have a perfect reality, or a heaven, or a free internet, really perfect internet, that's free sharing and all this, that nobody's pushing out nonsense and propaganda and whatever. That requires membership then, because, well, not everybody's there yet. They don't have the awareness and the sensibility to be a part of something like that. So how do you set up criteria that determine whether or not you are now appropriate to be in that reality. So you have to set up an awareness challenge.
Mm.
So if you think of heaven or fluid reality and you put death in this context as a necessity, well, here's a marvelous awareness challenge, right? If you can't get to that awareness where you have this liberty of being, this freedom, this fluidity, this flexibility to unhook from fear and to embrace the unknown, to embrace moreness, well, you're not appropriate for fluid reality, right? So when you see it in that sense, I mean, I can make a more detailed case. I'm kind of skipping over a little bit, but when you look at it in that sense, boy, it now just changes. What are the dogs doing?
Oh, he's
I
just
was,
bed lying down.
I thought he's getting up to something wild.
No, he was a little restless, so I had him over here for a few minutes and then sent him back to his bed.
So just to recap, I'm saying when we really look at death as a barrier, but a positive barrier, that's something we need to learn to deal with positively. If you're going to live your life always based on fear and struggle and limited, if you can't get to that point to see the greatness of things, the greater connected magic and awesome and sensibility of it, well, sorry, you have to just keep on going over the process until you get there, right? So when you see it that way, it's quite magical, no?
Mhm.
It's really cool, really cool. And it makes you think, what else would you need? So I would say too that you need to have mastery of your emotions, because yes, we can believe maybe that is a positive, but there's still that doubt. So we need to have full mastery of our emotions so that when we do transition, that we don't have our fears come upon us. We're in charge because we know those fears could now create the very thing that we're afraid of, which is hell. Right? I mean, there's a definition of hell when you create the very thing that you're afraid of. And after a while, you get to realize, oh my God, this is my own fears that I'm seeing. Well, that's perfect definition of hell to me. So we need to have not just awareness, but emotional maturity, energy management, sensibility, sobriety. All of this is a magical, magical test if you're going to be living in a reality where whatever you think and feel can materialize. That's a big responsibility, right? You really need to have control of yourself before you can live in a reality like that.
Mhm.
So now when we see death in this context, it's like, man, death is absolutely just magically, marvelously necessary good thing, yeah? Beside all the reasons you mentioned, Erica, for getting us off our asses in terms of motivation, to see the context of that we have to invest our energy, right? And that's a big deal. And look at motivation, what is important to us, because you got limited time. You don't have forever to just do whatever and keep repeating it ever. You have to choose, and your time is limited. So when you start to choose what you want to do, you are choosing based on what's important to you. And when you figure out what's important to you, what's meaningful to you, what's significant to you, that's how you get to know who you really are, right?
True.
That's the key point.
I've got to scoot and go.
Wait.
Thank you
Wait.
very much.
Oh, I
It was
thought you
so
wanted
good
to
to
share
see
something
you,
before you
Erica
go.
Jane. I haven't seen you in a while, and Joe,
Yes.
very nice to see you. It's been a while.
Happy New Year.
Very cool.
Yes,
Very cool.
death is a huge catalyst for actually living.
Yeah.
When we can get to that space and have everything else in place.
Yeah.
What joy that brings. I know I'm working on it.
I like
For
to
sure,
personalize death and see
right?
death as a counselor, as an advisor.
As a friend.
Yeah. Oh.
Exactly. All right. Bye, everyone. Laters.
Bye bye, Donna. Bye bye. Bye bye. It's
Laters,
fabulous.
laters.
Yeah. Latest. Fabulous. Yeah. When you see death as an advisor, it changes everything as a counselor. In my personal version, death is very rude and has very little time and patience for indulgence and nonsense. And he just tells it to you straight. What the hell are you wasting my time for, coming and talking about your girlfriend? It's like, come on, seriously? You're worried about, whatever her thing is that she's fussing about. You got better things to worry about than that, Hurry up, make peace. You got a little time, so death is the ultimate leverage. It puts pressure on us. Say, quit wasting your time, boy. Quit wasting your time. Yeah, yeah. So very good, very good. It's a motivator, a motivator. But I
Mhm.
like too the concept. So while we're talking about this alternative philosophy, to think as death as the point and purpose of living.
Mm-hmm.
It really shifts it, right? Oh, wow. I've got to learn how to die. Not
Right.
only how to die, but I've got to learn to want death. Think
Right.
about the ultimate in philosophy of opposite, right? It really shifts it. When you say, "Ooh, what do you mean you want to learn to want death?" Well, in order to want it, you have to shift your perception of what is involved. I want that transition into moreness. I want that transition into freedom. I want that transition from the limitations of this particular reality. This is a very limited reality.
Right.
I mean, look at the one major limitation. If you have any ethical sense, you say, well, I cannot live in this reality without causing death and
Mm,
destruction of some kind. That's a very limited reality to me. Sorry, if I'm designing realities, I don't want to live in a reality like that, right?
Mhm.
it's true.
So, so and when we start to see it as the point of it and to want it, now we start to, we can really elevate above our ethical constraints and limitations and the
Mhm.
problems that are inherent in this reality. But for that, I feel that we need to really have a very, very open and fluid and flexible and a super broad awareness that sees how things make sense.
Mhm.
And we have the ability to overcome these deep, deep, deep conditionings. Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
That's a very big deal to me. I feel that's a major challenge that I would like to overcome. And again, too, that challenge of who's in charge, me or my emotions?
Mhm.
Who's in charge? Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's very powerful. Did we talk about the brain as an engineering system?
Mhm.
You did.
I really like that. It's a big deal, to understand that. Not just like it, but it explains why
Right.
that whole being positive and being negative is so much easier low energy.
Right.
Just those more complex systems just start to get depowered and shut down and don't work properly. It's a very big deal.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
You ever thought about what my grandma's perspective on death might be right now?
He talks about it a lot.
Yeah, she does.
He doesn't seem particularly afraid of it necessarily, but I think she also, she has a son that she really loved who's gone. Her sister, who she really loved, is gone. Her mom, that she really loved, she's lost a lot of friends. I think
Mhm.
that's one of the kind of interesting things I think about getting to old age is that I think you do kind of naturally, if you are fortunate enough to make it to an old age and live a long life before you get to the point of death, I think you do start becoming more open to the idea because you have a lot of people that you love that have already gone through that transition. So if you believe that there's people over there waiting for you or whatever,
Mhm.
I feel like that just kind of naturally lends itself to being more hopeful about death, or not even, I guess not necessarily hopeful, but just not sort of surrendering to it,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
accepting that this is coming because it's like, well, I have things waiting for me on the other side or whatever.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how
right,
she.
right. It's interesting though. You were saying, that she lost this one, she lost that one, and if you think of this in an ideal awareness, if we can love, and when somebody moves on, they transition, we don't take it personally. We don't have that selfishness of, oh, I've lost something. Not a particularly selfish perspective. And to
Right.
say, I'm happy for you that you transitioned. Plus, whether or not it was timely or appropriate, regardless, I need to have sufficient sobriety and ethical energy to say, I don't want to be holding on to you with my sorrowful energy. If you're a spirit and you're energy now, my sorrow is a negative connectivity that essentially the intent of that sorrow is I want you here. I'm not letting you go. How is that appropriate? That's that to me very selfish and very inappropriate. And actually, when I share this with people in transition counseling, oh, it makes a big difference. And they really start to think, oh crap, am I? And then I say, now let's just switch it around. Put yourself in that shoes. You're the one who's now, and you looking back here, you the spirit, and you see your family all sorrowful and unhappy, and they're holding you back. Would you like that? Furthermore, would you want them to be miserable? Would you rather have them celebrating the fact that they knew you, that they were in your lives, that you now live in their hearts and memories? And they all go, oh, hell yeah. And when they realize how they might be detrimentally holding their loved ones back, oh, that really leverages their conscience. And then they let go. It's amazing. Then they switch to say, I cannot be sorrowful. It's a selfish act. That's not nice for the other person.
That's one of the things, actually, oddly enough, that I've been thinking a lot about with the whole concept of like choosing life, like choosing to come to Earth and have, this experience, choosing the circumstances.
Yes.
This concept, I'm thinking about, okay, what are all of the different possibilities
Yes.
that exist for, who we are, what we are, how we get here, what happens after we're gone, do we come back, what are all of the different options?
Right.
I was thinking about, this concept of, okay, what if we're given the opportunity to experience life many times, we can choose to come here, then what happens to the people, if you believe that the people that you love and have connected with in life are still connected with you after death, then if you choose to come back in an experience where you don't remember any of these people, you would be forgetting for this period, all of these memories that you have with these other people, because if you remembered them, you wouldn't live the life that you're choosing to live to the fullest capacity. You would always be trying to back. So it makes sense that you wouldn't remember, all these things. But I was thinking about, this concept of, okay, if you chose that and you chose to step into this life where you're not going to remember them, and you're going to live this entire life of not remembering these people that are close to you, then, what a heartbreaking thing, and how would that even work? And one of the things I kept thinking was, for me, that's kind of the ultimate love, is to let someone go so that they can continue.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
And
That's ethical love.
Right. To sort of mutually say, okay, I am going to step into this because, I love you. I want you to grow and experience and continue. And whether you remember me at this point or not, whatever, it doesn't matter. And, that's the ultimate love, is to say, I want
exactly.
to go and choose what is best for you, and to learn and to grow. And that one interesting, that just, I keep rolling through all these different ideas of, life and different ways that this could work and all this stuff. And that to me was kind of the ultimate part of this cycle, is, no matter what happens, whether this is all we get and we never see any of the people that we love again, or whether we do, but we part ways a million times and come back together. The point is that love is not holding on to somebody and, no, I can't be without you, whatever. It's experiencing, being grateful for the experience you've had, and wanting the absolute best for that other person, whether you are part of that or not. Which is, I don't know, it's interesting. And I think that's the same that you're saying for someone, transitioning through death, that that for them is an opportunity for growth and for
Yes. Yes.
new
Yes.
learning, for continuing on,
Right. Right.
constantly holding them back and wanting them to be here.
Right. Right.
Really the highest expression of love. It's
Yeah.
more loving to let them go and want them to continue and
Mm.
keep growing, keep experiencing.
Exactly. And the key to it really is just a shift of perspective to say you haven't lost anyone. They've just simply transitioned from a physical relationship to a spiritual relationship. They now live in your heart and your memories. You haven't lost anything. It's just a different relationship. It's transition. Oh, okay. Well,
Right.
how do you want to remember them? Sorrowfully or happily and joyfully? Well, what kind of relationship do you want? You want a miserable one or a happy one? Come on. So just think if you were on the other side. So this is really potent. It really, really shifts people, that responsibility involved when they realize that, oh my goodness, I'm being selfish. So it's a very big deal. Yeah. Bigger perspective. Bigger perspective shift. But I mean, this is the overall point of it too, to say we can leverage death to shift our awareness into a moreness awareness.
Mhm.
Not say this is limited and say, hey, there is more here, and assume that it makes sense and reverse engineer from there. And that's the power for me. When we start to see the entire genius of everything, it all makes sense. It's always in the context of awareness in some way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And when we have that flexibility and fluidity, and we've developed that ability to find where that greater sense lies and to see it and then react and live according to it, now we've shifted to living according to awareness and not conditioned behavior.
Mhm.
Right? We've transcended the limitations of our heritage.
Yeah.
That's a big deal to me. That's
It's,
a very, very big deal to me. I mean, that's why I was saying I want to be in charge of my emotions, not from a control point of view, but to have my emotions serve me rather than me serve my emotions. As
right.
long as I'm in the service of my emotions, I'm just a slave. I'm not free. And I can't be trusted.
Right. That's true.
I can't be trusted. So some society comes to me, like that, the ghost or whatever, the spirit approach me, whatever, and I say, no, I can't be trusted to be let into that society. I'm still, sometimes my emotions get the best of me and I act stupidly.
Right.
Sorry, I need to learn better. So that's very scary thought that because I see that happen sometimes and it really, really, really bothers me. Now, when you start to put it together with the energy management, but then it says that, we need to be so disciplined that we never drop to our energy levels low like that. And also, if we do, we have the real forbearance to hold on to that and not to get sucked in with that.
Mhm.
So this is a very powerful thing. When we start to live by sensibility and sobriety as the determinant of our behavior, not because it feels right. Yeah. I mean, how often don't we, after the fact, rationalize something? We felt it and then we rationalize to justify the behavior.
Right.
Mhm.
That's no good. That's no good. That's really no good at all. So, but it happens, and that's again, how much clarity of mind do we have? Clarity of awareness do we have if we are slaves to that? I'm sorry, we just very easily manipulatable and vulnerable, right? Really makes you think. Really makes you think what's involved in where we are heading, what we are trying to do. So, just by the way, this entire death perspective, it is one of the underlying intents of way of impeccability. It is to provide the structure and the tools precisely for this purpose of being able to deal with death.
Mhm.
It's one of its objectives.
Yeah.
Put it in there so specifically because, it can come later. It doesn't need to be there. But when you think of it in the terms of just clarity of intent, impeccability, all of the other tools, it's like, okay, this is a mechanism for us to prepare ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah. And to get the benefit out of the concept of death, afterlife, regardless of whether it's true or not. Like I said, all of this preparation for dealing with the potential possibilities of death still serve us should death turn out to be the end.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm still living with an advanced, enhanced awareness. I'm still living and using my energy to best effect. I'm still connected to meaningful purpose, significance. I'm still living where everything is about value and usefulness. And I've at least gotten to the point where I can say, oh, you know what? It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. I'm going to get value either way. That's profound strategy. It serves us marvelously. So we don't care what the end result with death is. We're going to get value regardless. That's pretty huge, no?
Absolutely.
I love it. It's just so one of my favorite topics. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling on a lot here, but it's a big deal, and it really, really shifts us. And that shift away from seeing death as a morbid thing.
Right.
And it's amazing that even now, when I use that term, it has that residual connectivity to the greater world's negativity about it. So it's very potent that we have to really use it repeatedly in a positive way to unhook that conditioning. To say, hey, you know what? Death isn't this big scary thing to me at all. And there's a big positivity to it, to really, really, truly perspective shift on that.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
pretty huge. Pretty
Mhm.
huge. Very exciting. Very, very, very exciting.
I agree.
I don't know that I don't have a fear of death itself. I have a fear of dying before I think I've accomplished everything that I want to accomplish.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
And I'm done accomplishing what I want
Right.
to accomplish, right? It's kind of a moving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, the benefits of impeccability,
I think
right? Because go ahead, Eric.
I was just gonna say I think that's one of the things. I think we've talked about this before, but I think that's one of the things that's sort of dangerous about setting a goal around. I mean, I don't know, sort of setting, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but setting an achievable goal, or not necessarily achievable, but a goal that has a definitive endpoint, I guess. So if you say, the goal of my life that I want to earn $1 million, by this age, and I want to own this, and I want to, do that or whatever. A lot of people, I think that's part of what is, I think you said, so about people in like midlife crises and how they achieve, they reach these goals, and then that's when you see them just totally spin out and go crazy because what now? Okay, this was my entire
exactly. And now what? They all say that. And now what? And then they end up at a loss.
I have all these things, and so what now? And that's, to me, that's one of the benefits of setting goals sort of open-ended. I want to learn, grow, I want to continue to become more appropriate, whatever. That's always going to be in the works.
Right. So one way we can combat that is to shift into that abstract mindset, and to take our goal and say, rather than having specific definitive goals, like a physical goal, something that is specifically achievable, then you move on to the next one. Why not have perpetual goals, such as excellence?
Mm-hmm.
What does it matter what I do if excellence is my goal? I do whatever I do it excellently, and there you go. I'm ready to go anytime. I'm happy. I'm always achieving my goal.
Right.
Big shift. It's a massive, massive, massive shift. All right. Not just excellence, but to do so with integrity, to do so ethically, right? To do so impeccably, right? Also to say whatever I am doing, I feel is justified and valid in the greater context. So I'm at peace at any point in my life. And we can really work to this. It's something we can achieve now. And it doesn't mean once we achieve it, it stops being a valid goal or worthwhile to continue achieving. We can achieve it continuously. And that to me is a big, big shift. So, starting with excellence, this is a perpetual goal I can have, and I can stop at any time and I'm satisfied. I can continuing forever, and I'm also satisfied. So again, magic of perspective shifting, that awareness to zoom out a little bit, to look at it from a different perspective and say, does that connect with you in any way, Joe, in terms of dealing with unfinished business?
It does. I was just thinking that that's not how we're taught to think
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. We're not. Conditioning. Precisely.
of.
Precisely. Yeah.
This is the point I'm going for.
Right.
And I
Exactly. Exactly. You know, philosophy of opposite. I love philosophy of opposite because pretty much you can take almost everything, you just turn it upside down, and there you get some magic out of it, right? Turn anything that we've been taught, like you said, now we've been taught a point, a specific goal. This is all, turn it upside down. Say no, I want a perpetual thing. I don't. So it's a magic to break free from conditioned thinking is something astonishing, and I really do feel most of the things that we are taught that are out there as supposed to be. Who pushes supposed to be? The BMNs.
Right.
I don't see you guys going around pushing what you think is according to you, is sensible. You don't even think according to should and supposed to be. It's so completely against your psychology. But you don't go pushing your beliefs and saying you should. No, it's impossible to you. The only ones who do that are the BMNs. Why? Because they need to justify their crappiness. So they come with all this nonsense.
Right.
But it's useful for us because we can just flip it all upside down and then you got sensibility. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, I think one
so
for me,
no, go ahead.
setting sort of perpetual goals, and I think we talked about this a long time ago, was the concept of when you switch to that mentality, it's important to keep in mind to stop regularly and sort of take stock of where you are, how far you've come, celebrate and appreciate the things that you have achieved so that it's not, I mean, I think having a finite achievable goal, the benefit of that is when you achieve it, you can stop and really appreciate, okay, I proved to myself that I could do this, I reached it, awesome, yay, okay, let me reflect back on how I got here, whatever, and then I'm going to go on to the next thing. So having perpetual goals, it's important to remember that you still need to do that. You still need to build in moments of reflection on how far you've come, of lessons learned, of, okay, I can see market improvement, I can see growth, whatever. I've proven to myself that I can do this and I'm going to keep moving forward.
Yeah, we can shift it. We can shift it. We don't have to be locked into our old ways of being. We can shift. We can shift. And add to that excellence, for instance, and all those things. We can add joy to it, and just know that we are being positive all the time. That unrelenting positivity to say, I'm always doing good just by me existing and being positive all the time. That's enough for me. Yeah. I feel, Joe, your level of excellence, for instance, man, you're always operating at an excellent level, are you not?
I don't know about always, but I try to.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, for the most part, on the overall, if you were to rate on the overall, okay, there are peaks and valleys, but on the overall, it's certainly excellent, no?
Mhm.
There you go. So be at peace, man. I really mean it. I really, really mean it. If you really just look at it in that sense, it's like, well, actually, yes, I am achieving excellence on a day-to-day basis. And you can continue to do so. It's not an endpoint, right?
Mhm.
It's fantastic. Same thing with being good. Every minute that you exist, you intend goodness. All right. Maybe sometimes a jackass comes along and we slip a little bit, and we might not always do so. But again, on the aggregate, by far the overwhelming majority of the time, you are pushing out an intent to goodness, are you not?
Mhm.
I say there might be the occasional times not, but all right. We might indulge in a bit of fun thoughts, but not really. I mean, those people who sometimes we like to think things of that aren't so fun, for them maybe, if somebody came along and paid you $1 billion and said, oh, I'm going to make your thoughts true, you'd say, no, 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 whoa, 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 I take that back, right? So it's not really. It's not really. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm assuming now if you were tempted with a billion, you wouldn't, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not so. Erica's like, well, I got $1 billion, a million maybe, but billion, I can do a lot of good with that billion. I'm happy to sacrifice jackass for that billion. Yeah, but still, it makes the point that sometimes we think stuff and it's not really true. We don't intend it. We might think it, but we don't intend it. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I intend people like Trump learn and grow, and yeah, and whatever's coming to them, they it comes to them. I don't necessarily want them to suffer, but hey, if it's necessary for the greater good, well, all right, so be it.
Mhm.
I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But
Mhm.
at some point, I also feel sorry for people like that because man, what an idiotic immersion bubble of stupidity they've fallen into. They're victims of their own unawareness, their own foolishness, their own bad attitudes, their own bad motivations, their own inappropriate goals, their own careless, foolish, inappropriate thinking. That's a terrible way to be. So I don't know. On some level, I have quite a lot of sympathy for them. Well, I feel bad for them. I certainly wouldn't want to be them.
No.
At the
Mhm.
same at the same time, they also know what's involved, and they choose despite knowing what's involved. So all right, it's your choice. I respect your freedom of choice. You want to make stupid choices, I respect yours. If that turns out that you end up with a negative consequence, well, that was your choice. You chose to choose that. I have to respect that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with him actually now, come in the new year, right? What actually happens? Yeah, yeah,
19 days.
Yeah.
yeah. I'd be surprised if he stays in the country. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
You
I,
don't
I
think?
I really would. I really would. But then again, he's so arrogant, and he's gotten away with stuff all his life that he may just be so foolish and prideful, not to want to look to run away and think that he can beat everything because they are. That arrogance thinks that they can just lie their way out of everything, and of course it backfires on them eventually. But they try. They try.
Mhm.
So it's going to be interesting to see. Going to be interesting to see.
It will. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking of goals that we can have, perpetual goals that we can continuously fill, like excellence. What others are there, beside joy and goodness? What others might there be?
Appropriateness.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of mine is practicing, just continually practicing.
Yes.
Being
Yes.
in the moment,
Yes.
practicing.
Mhm.
I mean, learning for sure for me, but I think, I continue to sort of work on this concept of practice and getting comfortable
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
being doing something despite knowing that I'm not going to be good at it.
Yes. 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 Deliberately making mistakes, in other words, you
Right.
could say, right? And enjoying the process of being wrong, making mistakes, being awkward, because you know that this leads to moreness, right? I play those wrong sounding notes. That's what I know now not to play, and that's how I improve. So this is a profound one of those complete 180 reversals of opposite logic, that we learn to enjoy the very thing we've been taught to fear and hate all our lives. It
Mhm.
pretty much goes into death because, for the BMN, to be wrong is death.
Right. Right.
That's it. They cannot practice. They cannot practice. That's why they get stuck and they don't learn and grow because they can't practice. They can never actually make mistakes, be awkward, be uncomfortable. They can't do it. They cannot do it. And it is a severe limitation of them.
Mhm.
So yeah, capital P practice. This is something we can do ongoing all the time. And it shifts. And we realize that, oh, the awkward, the uncomfortable. It's only so for a short little period. And then suddenly when you embrace it, you go through it, you do it. You say, oh, this isn't so bad. Oh, this is actually pretty cool. Oh, this is what, and then, and let's see. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how it shifts, and it doesn't matter that you remember from last time and 100 times before. Every time you start off with that bit of awkwardness and uncomfortableness, but we just have to get that discipline discipline to go through it, and that habit really. And then after a while, you say, okay, I remember I'm going to have to go through this. And then you know your mood is going to shift. And then it does.
Right.
That's very cool.
Mhm.
Very cool. I didn't think of practice as one of them, Erika. That's really awesome. That's a magnificent addition.
Yeah.
Another addition that came to me would be love. No,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
right? We can learn to love practice. Now it gets a bit confusing, somewhat, right?
True.
Because we're learning to love being uncomfortable. We're learning to love make mistakes. We're learning to love being wrong, but it's limited wrong. Small W wrongs, not capital. So we can shift past that because it leads to more. So we see the path to moreness leads through practice.
Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's huge. That's huge. That's huge, 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 huge. What else, maybe?
Yep.
What else can you do perpetually that would be an ongoing, achievable goal that yields a satisfaction in life, of life?
I think one thing that came to mind for me was we talked about being joyful, choosing to be joyful,
Mm, mm.
giving joy or creating joy for others.
Wow. Now, again, if we are in charge of our emotions and not slaves to our emotions, they serve us. We can choose to be joyful regardless of the circumstance.
Mhm.
We just enjoy being alive. End of story. They don't have to have a reason to be joyful. Again, it's conditioned thinking. What do I
Right.
need a reason for? I don't. Joy itself is the reason, surely, right?
Mhm.
True.
But what an idiotic logic that we have that says, well, if this happens, I have to feel this way.
Right.
Why?
Mhm.
Why? If you respond to everything with joy, with energy, with vigor, it doesn't make you inappropriate. It just makes you joyfully appropriate.
Right.
If you understand appropriateness, which is like, well, duh. So talk about a goal. That's that. Is somebody going to get a hiding with that newspaper? Oh,
No, it's chips. I need to go close them up.
chips. Oh. I thought it was a rolled up newspaper. Thank was getting in trouble or Sarah. That used to be the old thing,
Mhm.
Yes.
Get them with the noise,
True.
Mhm.
Well, Joe is
But-
got to go work on his
All right. No problem.
work on
It was fun chatting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be such a jabberwocky today, but I was all excited about this topic. It's all Donna's fault. Got me all into it. So, yeah. Cool stuff.
It's great to talk.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear more on this show, just in terms of this excellence perspective. I just put it all under excellence, right? How it shifts for you in terms of your day to day, what you do,
Mhm.
and that perspective of, you said you had this fear of leaving things undone. Is that still there now that we spoke about this?
Well, yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, that doesn't go away in one conversation.
Right. But somewhat, I imagine it must have somewhat shifted or not, no?
I think the perspective has shifted a little bit. I don't know that the fear itself is going away.
Right. But you have alternatives. You just now need to apply them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. That's the other thing that we want to learn, the ability to apply sensibility more immediately. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That'll be useful.
All
Very
right.
cool. Brilliant. All right, man. All right. All right, Joe. Are you going as well, Erica?
I've got a bunch of different things I need to be working on.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna go pick up my books actually.
Ooh,
Yeah. I'll show you next time. I meant to go earlier, but we were chatting the whole morning with Donna, so I never got a chance to go pick them up. But I'll show you next time.
awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Huh?
Brilliant. All right. Bye. Love it.